If you're thinking, oh, how sharp's the lens though? Is that what they sacrifice? No. No, it's not. G'day guys, what's cracking? It's Ralph here, and today I have a brand new lens from Tamron. It's the 50 to 400 f 4.5 to 6.3. It's the ultimate telephoto lens that becomes the all-rounder. Think about it, 50mm. You shoot a 50mm prime when you want to shoot a portrait or you want to shoot a crowd scene. You use your 400 when you want to get right into the guts of something, right up in there. So for example, an air show, whale watching, event photography, the perfect travel lens that does it all. This is the lens for you. Now let me tell you what it can do, and then I'm going to show you what it's capable of. An external view of the lens gives you a couple of buttons. It gives you an autofocus and a manual focus. If you hold this button down when you're focusing, the lens will hold its focus on whatever point you had, so you can move your composure and take a different shot, but the first thing you had in focus is still in focus. You can customize how the lens focuses, and you can do all that through the Tamron utility that you plug into the USB slot. As your good old lens hood, it's a decent one because it's a zoom lens, just turns around, clicks on, nice and secure. Then we come to the focal range ring, and it goes from 50 up to 400. And what I like is you don't have to snap your wrist as you're moving it throughout, but it is firm, so you can actually hold it wherever you need to hold it as it extends. That's the full extended length and the full extended weight, which is also the same weight when it's not extended. Now its filter size is 67 mils. That's from this side to this side, 67 mil across. So if you want to put a filter on that, that's the size that you want. Also has the number on the back of the lens cap. On the back, here's the bayonet, and that's looking pretty good. And finally, last but not least, is it has a lock button. So it enables you to lock your lens down so it doesn't extend in your bag and you don't risk damaging it. Also, if you lock it down, when you turn it on, you know that it always starts at 50 rather than it being something else. So if you have that in your mind, when you see what you want to take, you can either zoom it in or you can hold it at 50 or wherever you like. You know the starting point every time. So coming in at just over a kilo, but having such a massive range that it covers from your 50 up to your 400 means you can do away with a bunch of other lenses because this one will have you covered. Now, let me give you some lens specs as you have a bit of a closer look. The maximum aperture is 4.5 to 6.3, and here are the degrees at which it changes from one aperture to the next. There are 24 elements in 18 groups for the optical construction. Its minimum focusing distance is 0.25 of a meter. That's 25 centimeters from the sensor to your subject. That's very close. That's at 50mm. If you go full telephoto at 400, then you need a minimum focusing distance of 1.5. Has a maximum magnification ratio of 1 to 2. That means it's half the macro at wide, and 1 to 4, which is a quarter of the macro at tele. For very tiny objects like this little ladybird, for example, you can get up super close. It has vibration compensation to allow for any shake that you might have in your hands. Is 185.8 millimeters. How's that for specific? Has 9 aperture blades creating a circular diaphragm, and its minimum aperture is f22 at 50mm and f32 at 400mm. This particular one belongs on the Nikon Z. It's brand new to you today, mimicking the E-mount that was already created for the Sony model. So they've made it available to all us Nikon users. Thanks so much, Tamron. And so how does it go? Like, how's the quality of it? Well, we just had an air show, the Pacific Air Show on the Gold Coast, and I put this lens through its paces and I was impressed. These planes were traveling up to 1,000 kilometers an hour and I didn't miss a single shot. What that means is the autofocus was able to grab these planes super quick and hold on the tracking. I used the Z8 plane tracking option with spot metering, auto ISO, and look at the quality. So when I zoom in, it zoomed in to 100%. Some of these images are edited and others aren't. You'll notice it held the tracking on the helicopter. See, look at that, all in focus and looks wonderful. The shutter speed at 3,200th stilled the blades, but look, it had all these competing subjects or objects to draw its attention to, even the water down here, but it held the helo as it went through. Likewise, the Navy parachuter that came in, it held this as he floated in and didn't get dragged down to here, but an aperture of 9 holds all of that, which is at 400mm, a long way away, all in focus. So I tended to shoot around f9 when I was shooting things like this or the planes as you saw before if I shoot that on f9, because it gives me enough of a depth of field to make sure that everything stays in focus that I want to be in focus. So there's a little bit of a give and take there. Rather than shooting on the highest aperture, which at 400mm is 6.3, it reduces your chance of not focusing, but as things are moving, capturing them. So when it's high speed photography like this, I like to shoot about an f9. F9 to 11 is usually the best space for a lens's focus performance. But then you can pull it back to 138 and you get the context of what's happening. And that's the beauty of this lens. You don't need to go to another lens. You can pull back the focus to where it is, or I can sit way back on the beach and shoot at 400 and get these Navy SEALs as they're coming and chatting. Like how classic is that shot of like what a Navy SEAL is. These boys are called the leapfrogs. And then you got these long shots of the beach. Look, I had the freedom to move the focal length to whatever suited the scene that I wanted to catch. Then we have the Osprey that comes in, but look at the quality on the Osprey. You can even see, if I zoom right in, you can see the rivets. Oh, look, you even see the person's face. Look how far away he is. So that's the quality of this lens. There's other details on the plane too that you can pick up and zoom right in on if you want. Then we have, I love this shot because look at this. It has the detail of the pilots. I can zoom in even more. And look at that. That was traveling at like 1,000 kilometers an hour and boom, thank you very much. You can pick up the details like this and the plane just banking and going upright. Just looks spectacular. I'm going to put some edited images at the end of this video, so if you stick around you'll get to see what the edited full images look like. Again at 400 and you can see the wind and the smoke there. This is at 318, so at 400 not 300, you just have the ability to move through that whatever you like. Then we have the underbelly of the plane. This is a sequence of when it shot its flares, so I'll just jump through that sequence just quickly. But if we go back and I zoom in, see it's in focus, but all this is heat shimmer from the fuselage. It holds its focus extremely well. These planes were about to cross over. Focus was on the right one, so I followed the right one in until it crossed the left, because the right crossed in front of the left, which is why this is in focus and that's slightly out of focus. That was at 7.1. If I'd have shot at 12, it would have increased my ISO to maybe 1200, but this would have been more in focus and probably would have been a more sensible thing to do. I love the way that's framed at 400, but if you're like at 400 and then you're like, I just want some focus on this plane, look at that. Like, you can just zoom right in and it feels like that is still good quality and in focus, and it's now the focus of all these planes. Now they're all on the same focal plane, which you would hope, forgive the pun, but it's done an exceptional job. Planes are incredible in what they can do, but the lens was equally up to catching. Now I love this because it chose to carry and hold the plane when it had all these other competing focal subjects it could have clung to, but it didn't. It held its time right there. These are planes crossing, about to cross. Planes again looping around one another. Look at that, framed beautifully at 326. So I could frame the plane. They're going a lot slower, these big ones, and just nail this shot, have it just work so well that if I just apply an auto edit, if I take down the shadows, if I increase the highlights and I just take this down a little bit, you get a real nice feel for what the plane looks like. And if you really want it to pop a little bit, you add a little bit of clarity and a little bit of texture, and I'd increase the blacks a tiny bit, and there you go. It's probably touch too much, but I don't want to waste our time. So then a ladybird flies down and lands on my hand. So I take the same lens and at 54mm I shoot this. Then there's a brownie that it climbs across, so I click the brownie a few centimeters from the end of the lens away from the brownie, but look at the detail that's captured in that. And that's why this lens is just spectacular. You can go from this sort of shot to this sort of shot with the same lens by the twist of the barrel. Again, you see the quality, it's sharp, it's versatile, it's portable. This is at 113 mils, so you can pull it back wide and hold it in between at f-stop of 13, and you get all this in focus, you get that in focus, but of course you get the plane in focus. But f13 enables a heap of light to come in, which enables your ISO to remain at a sensible level, and 450 is very sensible. So you gotta love the capacity that this lens has to throw bokeh when you have something close and to capture everything in focus when you have a subject that's further away. So here's interesting, this is at 268mm and then this is at 400mm. So same plane, like a second or two later. So it's there, and then I zoom in and I nail that shot. And if I zoom in, you got the pilot looking straight at me. Ah, thank you very much. Then I can pull back to 277. So we go 268, 400, 227, and it has another swing by, and I'm at 268. And then there's a fueling and jet plane, and I needed to capture all three, and they were hurtling along, and so I could do that by shooting at 191 and frames it really well. So there's only a minimal amount of cropping and reshaping that I need to do with those planes to make sure they fit in a composition in a single shot. Then I go to 287 as I'm looking down the beach, and what I really wanted to capture here was this busyness and the colors and that. But then look at this, I wanted it to blur into the fact that the people just go on forever and ever. And look at these guys, they're all looking at the plane, which I probably should have been looking at, including this guy here. Yep. So there's something happening over my left shoulder that I probably should have been looking at rather than looking at them. And the ladybug comes back, ladybird, whatever, and I'm at 50mm. I can get this sort of detail, and then it jumps and gets squirmed in some sand. And what I love about this shot is, have a look at this. Look at what it does to the sand. I mean, this feels like silky smooth sand, but you can see the granules. When Zari looked at it, she said, "Is that sugar, Dad?" I'm like, "No, it's sand." And then plane flies past, I can pull it back to 400 and bang that out without a worry in the world. That's at 365. So you see, it doesn't matter what focal range you use, the autofocus is exceptional, and as I said, it grabbed every single shot that came through. The lens also managed to take these. So this is at 300mm, and this guy was standing like 30-40 meters away. Then one of my mates, I just looked at him, and he's wearing this cool hat with all these textures and the city. So I focused on the city. The city's in focus, and that's the air show from the city through his Oakleys and the beach down here. This obviously is really blurry, but his skin and the hat are all in focus too, and that was on an f-stop of 9. And because it was an f-stop of 9 and I'm a meter away, I was able to capture all of this really nice and tidy, and I could zoom in. So I just framed his hat at 268 and moved myself around until this was actually in focus and where I wanted it to be. And then here's my lovely wife. I just love this shot, but here's why I want to show you this shot. This is at 55mm at f-stop of 9. You can see the background's all in blur, but look at this detail. This is her eye. Like, are you kidding me? Look how sharp it is. If you're thinking, oh, how sharp's the lens though? Is that what they sacrifice? No, it's not. Come on. Let me show you the difference now between 50mm and 400mm and the increments as we go through that, and then what that compares to with the 600mm. And after we've done that, I will do a vignette test and we'll go back to the studio. So I don't know about you, but I couldn't see any vignetting across. Maybe the weakest point was the minimum aperture at 400, so the 6.3 at 400, maybe a smidge, but gee, it's negligible. And you may be asking, what about sharpness in the corners? And the problem I have with that test is it's not a real world test. So whenever you take a photo of anything, whatever you shoot has a focusing distance, but then to the side and the corners has a different focusing distance, right? So if you use a really shallow aperture, the corners are always going to be blurry. If you use a really deep aperture, the corners are going to be in focus. And I've never heard someone take a photo and go, oh, I got my settings perfect, but I stuffed up the corners because of the lens. So I'm not sure how accurate that test is, which is why I don't do it. I realize for some of you, you need that board, that sheet thing. I don't even know what it's called. You can put in the comments if you like what it's called. But even that has the same problem. The camera, the lens to the corner is a bigger distance than the lens to the center. Happy to have the conversation down below. If you want to do it politely, please politely. There's been a few. Thanks so much, Tamron, for sending this to me and for letting me keep it. No. I understand they can't. Oh, it'd be nice if they could. It is a really great lens. It's kind of your all-rounder, all you need. Really excited with that focal distance from 50 to 600. Super sharp. Autofocus is excellent. Opticals are great. Optics are great. Opticals. I'm going to go with optics. Optics are great, easy to handle, not too heavy. Highly recommend it to you. If this is for you, there'll be links in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, for your support of this channel. Please subscribe, like, share this video with any friends that you think might benefit from it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.